Hello and welcome to the Business Pulse International channel on this segment called Leading Edge, where we bring you business and industry leaders that have been here really to impart their knowledge and impart their journey insofar as what are the principles that they've learned along the way. Now, all these messages really are aimed at us as professionals and entrepreneurs to keep expanding and growing our skills and also knowledge in the various fields that we operate on. Now, our guest today is no exception. His name is Mr. Mandla Shezi, who comes from Hollard Insurance. He's the managing director looking after the division of Direct Affinities. Now, Mr. Shezi has had quite an illustrious career and quite colorful, having started off as a young man where he had the privilege of going to MIT, where he graduated with a BSc in engineering. He then also went on to come back into the country, where he went to study and held an MBA from the University of Cape Town. In his early career, he started off as a process engineer and also an economist. So talk about polar opposites insofar as the careers that a person can do. And he then went on to hold various leadership positions in companies operating in different industries. He's now the managing director of Hollard, looking after Direct Affinities, which is one of the biggest divisions that the company holds. So when I asked Mr. Shezi what his passion is outside of his work, he told me that he's got a keen interest in ensuring that he supports entrepreneurs, helping people to recognize that they can change their story, that they can grow, that they can be challenged, and really lead their lives for the better. So with that, I'd like to say, welcome, Mr. Shezi, and it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Lovely. So when I looked at your profile, I was absolutely amazed because really the kinds of things that you've done, from where it is that you've studied, the kinds of jobs that you've been able to hold and how you've molded yourself as a person. I'm quite interested, as much as I'm sure that the people that are watching the program are interested, in asking what do you believe has really gotten you where you are within your career? So what are the things that you have done that have made Mandla Shezi who he is today?
Well, I suppose the easiest answer would be education and working hard and making sure that at school you do well and making sure that with all the projects you get, you excel and overachieve and prove yourself. But I think that I have managed my career quite intimately and quite tightly, in terms of making sure that I have different and varied experiences in different industries. Even though I studied engineering, I never felt that I needed to be stuck with engineering.
Yes.
I was interested in business, in the creation and leading of commercial enterprises. And I knew that in order to be able to do that, I'll need a business qualification. And that's why I went on to study the MBA.
Going from an engineer to now a business professional.
To become a business person, yeah, exactly. And after studying the MBA, I realized that I needed to gain experience in different industries so that I can deal with different business problems and business challenges.
Absolutely.
And I thought that would mold the person that I am. And that's why I've been in fast-moving consumer goods, in management consulting, in the oil industry, and now in insurance.
Quite varied.
Yes.
I think before we get to the meat and bones of your career that you've built, take me back, and this is particularly because I'm thinking of young people currently. There's a lot of young people coming from quite disadvantaged backgrounds, all right? And then here you are, Black South African, back in 1995, having the opportunity to go to MIT. I mean, that is one of the leading institutions internationally. Can you just tell us briefly that part of the story? How exactly did you go from, matriculating from Ohlangane High and now being a graduate at MIT?
So I must say that obviously I was very lucky in the sense that I received a scholarship to go and do my post-matric in Boston in America. So that's where I did my post-matric, and during that period I then applied to different universities in America, and MIT was the first one. Was one of them.
That's
was
crazy.
The first one to accept me. Yeah, exactly. So that's how it happened. It was through a scholarship. Yeah.
But that's incredible, because I mean, a lot of people would give up insofar as like at home, Abazal Bami cannot afford to then fund my university degree. How is it that you had the foresight to realize that if you couldn't fund it yourself, you could be able to attract a scholarship?
I mean, I would say that in high school, we knew that through the normal processes, we would battle to do what we dreamt of doing.
Yes.
We knew we couldn't fund our education. So the only way was through scholarships, and scholarships needed results.
Yes.
So in high school, myself, a couple of friends, and that's all we were worried about, and that's all we were working towards, is to get those results that would qualify us for the scholarship. And I was lucky to receive one.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is absolutely key, because sometimes people expect that a scholarship will fall out of the sky, whereas when you're speaking around results, it says to me that you need to be a particular kind of person who has a particular kind of value for someone else to then recognize that, you know what, I see potential and I'd love to invest in you.
So you have to know what you want, and you have to know what it takes to get what you want.
Yeah.
And for us, we knew that we wanted a different story for ourselves. We knew that, actually my mother, when I was a teenager, told me about the number of engineers, black engineers in South Africa at the time. And I was surprised and shocked by the low number of engineers, and that was the basis of my career choice, actually, that I wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to change my story and the story of South Africa.
Sure.
And having made that choice, then it's about what does it take. There's no way I'm going to be funded by my parents.
You know what you want, but how you get there is a different story.
You must know what you want, you must make the decision, and then you must make the investment required to get there.
Yes,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
certainly. So I think just given the current context of our economy, and you're not a person that's not just involved in so far as, being a manager of a large organization or corporation, but you also have an appreciation for entrepreneurship. So given the current context of the economy, not only in South Africa, but really what's happening globally, the world over, what advice would you have for aspiring entrepreneurs and also for upwardly mobile professionals?
Aspiring entrepreneurs, I would say the fact that you've got that aspiration, that's already a good decision.
Yeah.
Because I think that the whole point about changing our story is that we don't get educated to become laborers. We don't get educated to become salaried individuals.
Yes.
We become educated in order to contribute towards the success of this country. And the best way to do that is actually by starting businesses. It's a well-known fact that this country needs more and more small, medium enterprises in order to grow the economy and change the livelihoods of many people. So us as a country, we need to invest in this. And so if that's what you want to do, that's already a very good decision. However, what it takes is something else. The investment required in your own business acumen. Firstly, you must go to school. You must go to school. You must get yourself a qualification. Education is important. Being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you don't have to go to school. But also, there's much more than that. Your business acumen, that you don't get that from the classroom.
Expand on that for me. So what do we actually mean by business acumen? So if a person hasn't heard of that term, let's break it down to a story. Let's break it down to practical examples. What does acumen mean?
So acumen is built up of your own skills and, most importantly, your experience, because it is called upon during critical moments of your business when you have to make the business decisions that actually transform either positively or negatively your business. In deal making, so how do you make those judgment calls? So that's where the acumen actually comes in. And you don't really get that from school. It's from actually immersing yourself in moments that actually require that. Immersing yourself in case studies that require that. So what I would advise young people to do is that get yourself a mentor, get yourself a successful business person that you socialize with, and ask as many questions as you can. Try and live through the moments that they've lived through in order to develop your own experience and acumen, and ask questions. How did you do this? How did you resolve this? Why did you do it like that and not like that? That's the only way you can get to it. That's the major risk of entrepreneurship, is that you go from school straight into business, but you're actually lacking experience and you're lacking judgment. Practical experience,
certainly. I think there was a guy that said, a clever man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And that's where really the mentorship comes in. Because if you haven't experienced it yourself, the experienced business person can then be able to, circumvent that you don't need to create the same mistakes in order for you to be able to get there. So it's actually it helps to just bridge that gap and shorten the time period that you don't make as much mistakes as they did to get there.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I mean, to speak to professionals, upwardly mobile professionals in corporates, you know, everybody obviously aspires to become a leader. I would say that you have to be in love with working with people.
Yes.
Because you're going to work with people, you're going to work with all kinds of people. Sure. You don't lead the people that you like, you don't lead the people that look like you, that come from the same background as you. So you have to love working with people, you have to love dealing with people. And I think also as an aspiring leader in corporate, you need to bring something different. You need to be dissatisfied almost by the current form of leadership, by the current leadership in the country.
Yes.
You need to be able to be bringing something different, because that's what gives you the passion and the drive to actually do something different. It mustn't just be about the perks, the authority, the position, etc., etc. You must be in love with it. You must want to achieve something different that hasn't been done before, etc., etc.
Certainly. For yourself, what drives you? So in the space in which you play, what defines your style of leadership? What defines your approach? What defines your unique philosophy that actually enables you to deliver the kinds of results that you do?
Actually, I would say my style of leadership was defined quite early on in my career, when I quickly realized that actually my technical qualification had limitations. When I was working with shop floor people at Shell in the refinery, I realized that all the theories that I had learned and all the books and all the hard work I was putting in amounted to nothing without the practical experience. And I found myself very dependent on the knowledge and the practical experience of the people on the shop floor.
Yes.
And very quickly I realized that my job was not about telling and instructing, but to question, to understand, to add value, and actually to create an environment for people to become their best. Because they are the guys that actually work with the equipment, they are the guys who interact with the clients, and so they are the guys who know best. I can only question their assumptions, I can only challenge their plans, and from that I can only improve or add value. But most importantly is that if they are at their best through the environment and through them being motivated by creating something new, then for me, you know, I see myself, I'm a team leader. Yes. I contribute, I add value to the team. And I would say actually that's probably my style of leadership.
No, certainly.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think what you're speaking on is, I mean, sometimes when you're young, you've just come from university, you know, education, and then you come across, for example, within a shop floor where people are much less educated than you are. It's very easy to assume that you know more, and therefore come with that kind of arrogance that I'm going to tell and you will do, versus building that relationship and engaging.
If you think you know it all, you are wrong. You don't know it all, and you still have a lot to learn. Even when you do have the experience, even when you now think you have the business acumen, you've made amazing decisions in the past, you still have a lot to learn. This is not a science, it's never ending. It's a never ending learning journey, the journey of leadership.
Definitely, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that you think people make when they start a business or when they're running a business? So I think that one of probably the most common mistake is to assume that just because the idea is great, that everybody else thinks it's great, and that therefore you deserve the funding and the support. There are many very good ideas out there that have never been implemented. And there are many very good ideas that have been implemented but they've not been successful. So the success of a business is actually not in the idea, is in the business that you put together and that you build, and it's in actually how your idea is received by your customers and your employees. So it's actually going to take much, much more than an idea. So you're going to need funding. You're going to need employees that believe in the idea, that believe in the vision. They're going to have skills.
And then they're going to have to be motivated to actually go out there and deliver the best for the customers. So the idea is just the beginning.
A part of a whole ecosystem that supports
a
it.
huge ecosystem that takes a number of years to put together, up until it really functions and it actually delivers to the needs of those clients that you had identified. It does not happen overnight. Now, just convincing the funders is a process in itself. And you're going to be knocking on a lot of doors. And actually, sometimes then people give up. Nobody wants to support my idea financially. But actually, even that process is part of the learning process, because you need to be understanding why are they not supporting your idea.
Because they don't like you.
And then see the gap in the idea and then decide, how do you close the gap? Don't go to the next pitch for funding without addressing the gap that was identified by the other potential funders. So it's a long journey and it's a hard slog. And if you don't succeed, it's not the end of the day. Something else will come. Most importantly is, what do you learn?
Certainly. Let me take you now into your world of work. All right. So, coming from the organization that you come from, what do you see as the future of insurance? So I think set a context for us insofar as what are the current challenges that you're facing that are really demanding that you do business differently, and also then take us forward. What's your vision? What do you see coming into the future?
Well, I mean, the insurance industry today is facing a number of headwinds. Firstly, the economy is not really firing on all cylinders. The consumer is not really thriving out there. So, when they review their finances, insurance is on top of the list of those expenses to reduce and to cull. And so it's really tough. We are also facing a situation where regulation and the complexity of regulation, it's making it very difficult and expensive to do business. So prices are going up. So what you're going to find is that we're not seeing a lot of organic growth, but there's a lot of consolidation in the industry.
So people buying and acquiring.
So growth is really through acquisitions for a number of players in the last few years. But I think that the winners from now on are going to be those that are really diversified in terms of asset classes, in terms of distribution channels, and in terms of customer segments. Yes, when the economy is pumping, if you're too diversified, I mean, you don't really ride the wave fully, but you continue to grow. But in these very difficult periods, I think those are the companies that do quite well. But I think the future, though, regulation is going to continue to be a big part of our story. So I think small players are going to struggle to come into play. So the guys that are going to do really well, I think, are the guys who have strategies that are customer-centric. It doesn't matter which segment that you play in, but a tailor-made strategy
really serve the customer
that really understands the needs, the behavior, the preferences of the customer. I think those companies are going to win. But also, I think the guys who are going to embrace the digital and the big data and analytics wave are the guys who are actually going to do well, because I think the growth of digital is actually going to change the way we do business. It's going to lower service costs, it's going to lower distribution and sales costs, and it's going to improve client experience.
Because then you'll be leveraging technology.
You'll be leveraging technology
to unlock your business.
Absolutely. I think those are the companies that are going to win in the future. Absolutely.
I think before I let you go, we are in an economy, so let me speak South Africa focused. So in the South African economy, youth unemployment, and they said for black youth, is sitting at about 60%. So we've got over 4 million black youth in this country that are sitting at home. They're not in any form of training. They're not in any form of employment. Okay. You've got big corporations. Big corporations only account for about 40% of employment within there. And then SMEs, the studies say, account for about 60% of the employment opportunities that are there. So for any young person that's sitting there, for any entrepreneur that's currently within the space, what kind of advice would you have insofar as where should they be focusing, where can they be, deriving the most value that's needed really to take us as a country forward?
Well, so just firstly touching on the issue of youth unemployment, I think it's a very serious issue in this country. There are a number of organizations that are tackling this challenge head on. And actually, I serve on the board of one of those organizations, which is the Harambe Youth Employment Accelerator.
Yes.
I think that there is a huge call for business and corporate to change the way we do things, to change the way we recruit, to question our selection models in order to accommodate the youth, more and more youth, especially more and more unemployed youth, because it's a ticking time bomb, and I think it needs to be resolved. So I think there is a huge call to the corporates to do things differently there, challenge our assumptions, challenge our models, recruitment and selection models. So, however, for the youth themselves, I would say that firstly, you have everything to succeed already. And a lot of our youth, some of them are qualified with degrees, and some of them have matric. I think that it's not just about the financial capital. It's not just about your academics. It's not just about that job that you have. There are many other forms of capital that you should be leveraging. Your social capital, you should be building that. You should be networking yourself. You should be finding out what organizations are out there. You should really be stretching yourself on an ongoing basis. Be out there. Don't look at your situation and feel like it's a dead-end situation. It's not a dead-end situation. Because the more you knock and the more you question and the more you ask, you'll find that answers actually do exist. Like, for instance, there are a lot of organizations that are trying to solve this problem, but you'll find that half the youth in that situation don't even know about them. Sure. So there is a lot we can do. But also, I think that the youth, it's not about a job. It's about solving problems for your community. Sure. Find out the problems that your community has and see how you can solve it. Come up with a different way. Be entrepreneurial. Create something new in your space. Right? There are lots of problems in our space, be it in rural areas, be it in townships, that require solutions that are homegrown, that are developed from those areas.
Absolutely.
You are the one that understands those problems better than these corporates that are sitting in big cities.
Certainly, you're in it.
Exactly, you're in it. So I think the first thing is really about changing the mindset that says that my only hope is a job.
Sure.
So your only hope is not a job.
And it's a mindset that is killing millions because they feel so helpless without doing anything themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. So there are many, many forms of capital out there. Sure. And be connected. Create groups from groups that tackle these problems, that challenge each other, challenge yourselves. Talk about your situation and how you can break out of it, and what it will take. And I can tell you, so now again, don't suffer on your own. Again, maybe make your problem a slightly bigger problem, right? And then let's say, guys, how do we change our situation? And I think solutions will come out of that. Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Certainly. Solving problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Shezi, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I think with the people that are watching this program, there's a lot that they're able to get out and a lot that I'm hoping they'll be able to use for themselves to take themselves to the next level. So join us again here on Business Pulse International channel when we do Leading Edge. And really, I think the parting note from this is you must realize that what happens to us all. Disappointments are not just some special gifts that are reserved for the poor. All of us will get disappointed. But the difference is in whatever it is that what happens, where we end up, what makes the difference between something happening and someone else being broke and someone else really rising to be their best, it's how we respond to it. So join us next time on Leading Edge.